How many of you know the real stories behind classic fairy tales? Where did the writers supposed to get their inspiration from? Welcome to our channel. Many fairy tales and the traditions that surround them are diluted versions of upsetting historical occurrences. Even some adults may find these scarier tales too disturbing for today's children. Their horrifying origins, which frequently entail very heinous events, are rife with terrible lessons that is both sophisticated and extreme. They are more powerful than the harmless fables of today because their imagery is difficult to erase, and their lessons are more profound. Usually, every classic fairy tale is inspired by a horrifying story, written in a scary way, and then beautified so that children can read them as a beautiful fairy tale. So let's see what some of the classic fairy tales and their stories behind them. Are they true? Who knows after all these years? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The fairy tale is based on the tragic life of 16th-century Bavarian noblewoman Margaret von Waldeck. In Bad Wildungen, where Margaret was raised, her brother employed young children to work in his copper mine. They were dejectedly called dwarfs because of their severe deformities brought on by the strenuous physical effort required for mining. The poison apple has historical roots as well. An elderly man used to feed his workers and other kids whom he thought had stolen from him contaminated fruits. The beauty was submitted to the Brussels court by Margaret's stepmother, who hated her and wanted to get rid of her. Prince Philip II of Spain met her there and they started dating. In order to put an end to the affair, his father, the King of Spain, sent Spanish operatives to kill Margaret. She was secretly poisoned by them. Rapunzel. Rapunzel is inspired on an old Christian tale. A wealthy pagan businessman in Asia Minor in the 3rd century AD so cherished his lovely daughter that he banned her from having suitors. As a result, he kept her locked up in a tower while he was away. There is no mention of how her came to be significant, but she became a Christian and prayed so vociferously that as the merchant left, the sound of her piety resounded throughout the town. When the merchant learned of her deeds, he brought her before the Roman proconsul and demanded that her father have her beheaded or lose his riches if she continued to practice her new religion. The father beheaded her, but shortly after, he was struck by lightning and died. She later became Saint Barbara, a martyr who is cherished by the Eastern Orthodox Church. Bluebeard. Canomer the Cursed, the Breton leader who had been warned he would be killed by his own son, served as the central character of Perrault's tale. He killed one of his wives as soon as she became pregnant. The wealthy 15th century Lord Gilles de Rais, a hero of the 100 Years' War and Joan of Arc's guardian on the battlefield, captivated Perrault more. He developed a reputation as a prominent kid serial murderer after leaving the service. His horse's smooth, blue-colored fur earned him the moniker Bluebeard because it seemed that way in daylight. He went into great detail throughout his horrifying trial about how he had taken advantage of and abused defenseless youngsters. These details were used by Perrault to create his own terrifying persona. Hansel and Gretel. The Hansel and Gretel story could have been used to prevent kid wandering. But during the severe famine that ravaged much of continental Europe and England from 1315 to 1317 AD, epidemics, mass murders, and many other horrifying things increased exponentially. Some desperate parents left their kids behind and killed their draft animals in an effort to find comfort. Or perhaps Hansel and Gretel simply happened to pass Katerina Schraderen's residence. She created such a delicious gingerbread cookie in the 1600s that an envious male baker claimed she was a witch. After she was chased out of town, a group of irate neighbors tracked her down, took her back to her house, and set her ablaze in her own oven. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. In the Germanic village of Hamelin in 1264, a Pied Piper had volunteered to exterminate the numerous rats in exchange for a sizable payment from the village elders after the assignment was completed. The elders broke their vow when he killed the rats. The piper, who was indignant, persuaded the village kids to follow him. They never came back. Clearly, the story has changed and evolved over time, but there are a few theories that try to explain what actually happened. Some think the kids died of the plague, and that the Pied Piper was the personification of death, others that the kids were sent away by their parents due to their extreme poverty, while others again posit that the children were part of the Children's Crusade, a doomed, child-led mission aimed at converting Muslims in the Holy Land to Christianity. Frozen. Frozen is loosely based on the Hans Christian Andersen story of The Snow Queen. The main similarity? There's a queen with winter, snow, ice powers. But the fairy tale might not have just dropped into Andersen's imagination. Rumor has it, the acclaimed Swedish opera singer Jenny Lind was the inspiration for the titular queen. Allegedly, after Lind rejected Andersen's romantic pursuits, he turned her into the Snow Queen, a woman with a heart made of ice. These are some of the true stories that are behind fairy tales that children still read. Are they true? Are they not? Who knows after all these years? But, for us adults, they give another dimension and read them again maybe differently. Thank you for watching our video, and if you liked it, please consider to thumbs up and subscribe, cause you don't want to miss the second part.